Steve Ryan with the Coastal Progressive and Rainbow Forum on Society Bites Radio, bringing you programs of interest to the progressive and LGBTQ plus communities. Today on our program, we are fortunate to have Rain HERVEY, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and then let her tell you more about what she does. A little bit about her: she's a University of South Florida alumna. As a black queer woman, Rain believes her identity has always been political. During her studies at the University of South Florida, she obtained her BA in Sociology and her MA in Communications, and became passionate about the power of using storytelling to move people forward towards social change. She currently works for a nonprofit social justice organization as a communicator and organizer. As the Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus Diversity and Inclusion Chair, Rain's goal is to educate and engage voters across the state about power and privilege and to ensure everyone is represented within the fight for equality. Okay, welcome, Rain. Please say hello and tell us a little bit about some of the work that you do and that you are looking forward to doing here in Florida as a diversity leader.
Thanks, Steve. So thank you for that awesome intro. I just want to add that I really hold a lot of different roles. I feel like over the past few years, I've been a community activist, a student, a communicator, an organizer, and an educator. And in each of these roles, I've really just been striving to learn and teach about the power of radical inclusion and what it means for folks to feel represented and included, particularly in spaces in which they've often been excluded from. So I'm really grateful to be here today with you all and be speaking with folks who are just so aligned with what it means to fight for equality and what it means to really move progressive agendas and mindsets and collective power forward in a way that represents everyone, and so everyone can feel like they have a seat at our tables. Right now, I, again, am the Diversity and Inclusion Chair for the Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus. And really that's, it's a new position within the caucus that came out of conversations folks were having about how to expand the caucus in a really intentional and strategic way that opened up space for folks to feel included and represented. So my job is to create a committee in which there are diverse voices being represented, and having those diverse voices represented in a way that is empowering and that moves our work forward. So that includes identifying workshops, trainings, and programs for our members of the caucus to present their work at, as well as to recruit members. It also includes showing up at events and in spaces where diversity and inclusion is huge. So with folks who do work with communities of color, with folks who do work with the disabled community and other groups, in order to make sure that our work is intersecting so that, we're not siloed. I think a lot of times groups can focus on their own communities in a way that often misses opportunities to be in collaboration and in community with other folks who are impacted by the same issues. So this committee is an opportunity to bridge some of those gaps and foster relationships with other caucuses, but as well as voters across the state who are interested in engaging with progressive movements, but maybe aren't sure how to get involved because they often feel marginalized. So that's sort of what I'm doing right now.
Excellent, Rain, and that's an excellent description of where you're headed and where you want to see this process moving forward. We have so many people that are marginalized in our state and across the country, in fact, that it is really pathetic, and the Democratic Party is really their only choice they've got if they want to try to bring change. And the Democratic Party itself must work to try to expand our diversity. It is something we've been saying for years, and I'm so glad that we have you aboard with us and that you're working with us. We've needed this for a while, and we need others like you working together from our very diverse communities that we have, not only in people of color, but in the LGBTQ plus communities and so many other ethnic groups and so forth that the Democratic Party tries to represent for real people. There are so many areas where the average working people are not being fully utilized and are being oppressed and also being exploited. And I'm sure I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I want you to tell some stories around this too.
Okay.
I've worked for years in mentoring at-risk youth. Helped found a mentoring program in one city, in one of the most diverse cities in the nation. And I just saw it on the news the other night that they are the most ethnically diverse city in the nation. I'll tell you who that is in a minute if you don't already know. And anyway, but then I found a mentoring program at one of the most diverse high schools there. And I was one of the three founders, and we had 70-some different nationalities and 50-some different languages. I can't remember the exact numbers now. It was an incredible number. And a lot of different cultures, a lot of different ethnic groups, a lot of different religions, and so forth and so on. But over here in Florida, I'm doing some of the same work here because we brought some of our clients with us. And just in the past, I can give you examples of the past few months here where we have worked hard trying to explain to young people they must continue their education. And we have done this. I'm so proud of some of the boys they've done, and the young ladies too. They've done so good. And I wish I could tell you it was 100% successful. We don't. Right now, I'm worried about a couple that were supposed to already be in their training programs and for skills that they were trying to develop. And two of them that I had put a lot of stock into have both deliberately did not get into class because it was too many. They didn't want to study and work at the same time, which is what's required. But anyway, my point I'm getting to here is I want you to give us some stories here about where you see where we can help and some of the different areas of diversity here that we have so much need to expand inside the Democratic Party. And to get true justice for people.
Okay, yeah. I think I do kind of want to guess the city before I answer your question.
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm going to guess New York, or I kind of want to say Miami.
No, they're close, but this may surprise you. It's Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas.
Oh, nation's in Houston. I can totally see that.
Yes, it is extremely diverse. Have a large Arabic, Middle Eastern population there too. They have all kinds of Hispanic cultures there from Latin America and so forth and so on. The South Asia population too is quite extensive there, and goes on and on and on. So anyway, yes, they are by population count anyway. Per percentages, so the most ethnically diverse city in the nation. And New York is not far behind them. Yeah, I think New York is right shortly behind them there. So, but I just saw that on the news the other night. That's why I brought that out. So, but
that's amazing. That's some amazing work that you've been doing. And I think that really speaks to one of the things that I talk about a lot is intersectionality as a way of thinking about diversity and inclusion. And that's really looking at the ways in which folks' specific identities overlap and layer each other sometimes. So the way that our race, our gender, our sexuality, our income level, how all of those things really contribute to how we experience the world and how we perceive it. And I think for voters, that's an important framework to consider because within our party, we're so diverse. I think folks can't really miss that about us. But I think there's an opportunity for us to strengthen the way that folks who experience different layers of marginalization and different layers of their identity can feel a little more included. And some of the things that I talk about is centering from the margins. So That's a concept from a critical cultural scholar named Bell Hooks, who talks about the ways that folks of more privileged positions, for example, if you're a straight white male who's able-bodied and is middle or high class, things of that nature, how you can use your privilege and your position to bring folks who typically aren't centered in conversations or decision making to have their perspectives and experiences heard. So looking in particularly what sorts of organizations are you in, or what sort of community spaces are you in where other folks may not have a seat at the table or who don't feel included can be included, and bringing those people to the center with you. Being mindful of, when events are being held, who's organizing those events, who's being featured on your literature and on your branding, who's having an input, making sure that, for example, communities of color are collaborating with you when you're talking about diversity and inclusion, because they are at the core and are most impacted by issues related to diversity and inclusion. I think also when it comes to the party, really investing in the areas that are made up of the groups that you're interested in bringing to the center with you. So, identifying community leaders in those spaces to help build relationships with those communities rather than just waltzing in and assuming membership will happen. We have to create a base. But we have to create a space for our base to feel represented and to feel included. And that's not going to happen overnight, of course, but I think that we can start to take tangible steps to create that. I also think there's a lot of potential in the way that we look at our programmings or trainings or other opportunities. For example, you may remember at our most recent conference in July, our Vice President, Nick Harris, mentioned that, the space was largely looked the same, and encouraged folks in that space the next time that we were going to meet to bring someone from a marginalized identity or an identity that doesn't look the same as your own. So I think there's sort of a structural as well as personal responsibility that we can all take to make sure folks feel included. And I think the personal is the most easy. It's likely the easiest step we can take, because we likely know someone from an identity that doesn't belong to us. We likely know folks who have maybe expressed interest or could benefit from or contribute really amazing ideas, thoughts, and votes, of course, to the party. But sometimes it really just takes stepping up in your identity and your privilege and asking, what do you need? How can I support you? Would you like to come to this event? I think that you have a lot of ideas to share. And really taking those steps is going to be really key for us, I believe.
Excellent. Yes, and I agree with you, Rain. That's what's going to take. I'm so glad we're moving forward now. I wish we had started sooner, because I'm going to tell you another quick story here, real brief, and then bring it into focus on what you're talking about here. I survived in my corporate days and everything in privilege because I passed as white, hetero, male, and I spoke multiple languages. I had the diversity that I needed, but yet that's why I rose to the corporate ranks. But not being my true self, who I really was, or I would not have survived. And it leaves a lot of anger. When I had to do that to survive. That's true with a lot of LGBT people, who for years, the older generation especially had to hide themselves in order to survive, or they would not have got promotions. They would not have been promoted. And that's why much of the LGBT community can identify with the other minority communities too as well. And they should be able to, because I'm going to give you a quick example here. I'm going into a lot of detail because I'm probably, but anyway, real quick. The year was